All right, what's up? So in this video, I'm going to be showing you guys the 3 best practices we're using that are somewhat undercover to get really good show rates on webinars, not 2 years ago, not 3 years ago, not yesterday, today, tomorrow, and into the future moving forward. These 3 best practices are going to really help us improve show rates on webinars. By definition, show rate or show up rate is the percentage of either scheduled appointments, meetings, or registered events where participants actually attend and show up, right? That is show rate by definition. What you want to be doing is getting people to show up. Now, why should you listen to me specifically on webinars, and why should you listen to us on webinars? You can see here, achieving show up rates 40% here, 48% here, 76% here, 74% show up rate here on a big webinar we ran, 68% show up rate on another good webinar we ran, 52% show up rate, 46% show up rate, 53% show up rate. I can basically go on and on. I've just got some screenshots from Webinar Jam itself here, just so you guys can see exactly what we're doing, when we're doing it, and why we're doing it. Again, we aren't some agency who did this 2-3 years ago, giving you the best practices from back then, or giving you simply the best practices like sending pre-call email or pre-webinar emails, making sure we're running a hammer them sequence, etc., etc. Like, we aren't going to teach you this simple stuff, or I'm not going to explain this simple stuff, or the stuff that's very well known in the space in this video. So if you're looking for that, probably check out another video on my channel, and like, again, have a look, ask me a question, flick me a message on Instagram. I can always give you some feedback or advice there when it comes to overall best practices. But we're actually running 9 webinars this week across the agency. So we are implementing these things and doing these things at a decently high level, I'd like to say, today, tomorrow, and into the future. Not 2-3 years ago like a lot of these other guys are doing, or not just, never done them in their life before. So again, the proof's in the pudding. We're running 9 webinars this week using these exact same systems and processes. If you want to watch, you can watch. This isn't going to be some sort of really dopamine heavy video. I'm going to actually explain real topics so you can actually get real value and take away some things that you can then go and apply towards your next webinar for either yourself, your client, or, if you're a marketer, for your agency. Now, again, as I said, this video isn't going to be basic stuff. So if you want to, learn some basic stuff, flick me a message. I'll be able to, go over some of our current best practices and everything. And if you don't want to DM me on Instagram, the link will be in the description to actually book a private call with me one-on-one, where we can go through your webinar or just your offer in general and see what's going on that front of things. But let's get straight into it. I don't want to go yap on too long, so I'll just get straight into things. Now, the first thing is going to be dialing all of our registrants, right? Each setter essentially needs to be hitting $150 to $300 per day, obviously the day of and the day before the webinar, depending on the size of the masterclass. Obviously, essentially, why we do this, we essentially want to increase show up rates, obviously, but we want to also increase intent, right? So essentially on these calls, all the setter needs to do is call them up, say, hey, awesome, what's up, Joe? Are you ready for the masterclass tomorrow at 4 p.m.? Have you got the links? Have you got the WhatsApp group chat? Have you got the Telegram group chat? Have you already looked at the resource and everything like that? Oh, no worries, man. I'll flick you the WhatsApp group chat over right now. Flicks it over to them, make sure they're in it, and double checks that they're going to check into it. Awesome. So I'll call you after the masterclass, and we'll see what's up, see what's going on. That's essentially what they say. So obviously they make sure the confirmation to show up and follow up is organized, as well as obviously they're 100% ready to go. There's nothing that's going to pop up, and they're pretty committed and they're showing up with intent. Now, why do we do this? Why do we run this? Obviously it increases show rates, but it does more than just increasing show rates, right? It increases the intent of people showing up, which is something none of these webinar gurus are talking about, because I'll give you 2 options, right? You can, option 1, 500 people show up, not interested, or just letting it play in the background, right? Lots and lots of people are running masterclasses and free trainings and webinars, challenges, whatever you want to call them at the moment, basically live events or pre-recorded events that look live. Most of these B2C prospects, especially within the US, are not very interested in it anymore, or at least aren't as interested in it as they were initially, because they've probably hopped on multiple of these before. They understand the gist of things, and they're more advanced when it comes to just their intellect around webinars, right? So you can have theoretically good show rates on paper, like maybe a 50% show rate. So 500 out of the 1,000 registrants actually show up, but they're not interested at all. They're just letting it play in the background, or they're cooking dinner while they're watching it. So they're not really interested. They're not listening to the messaging that you've had in your presentation, and they're not like treating it importantly, which means they're not going to take action to fix their problem, even if they know that they've got the problem, simply because they're not listening to a presentation that's meant to be listened to and meant to be understood at a really, really high level. Essentially is a waste of time because they're just like sitting there, they're just dead weight, right? And we've had this before. The reason I know why this happens is because we've had it before and experienced it in the past. After we implemented these plus our other two, essentially we led to option 2, right? Option 2, 550 people show up. So yes, we've had 50 more people show up in total, but all of those people are interested, they're taking notes, they're really applying what we're teaching, and they're actually listening to the presentation that's made to be listened to, right? What this leads to is much higher booking rates, much higher intent on those closing calls, much higher show rates as well. Like for a webinar we ran, we did this, we literally had 100% show rate on every single, oh, not 100%, like 95% show rate on every single qualified call, as well as like a 70% close rate, which is absolutely insane and mental, from cold traffic as well. Simply because we did this, we made sure our registrants were dialed and, confirmed, as well as followed up and organized for those closing calls, right? Or whatever you want to call them. Now, that is the first thing. And honestly, this is a huge improvement. Like, even if it doesn't necessarily directly improve your show rates, which it will improve your intent on every lead that shows up, essentially making your return on registrant as high as possible, increasing ROAS, right? Now, the second thing is ad spend distribution. Now, currently, obviously with paid, we run a 4 to 5 day promotion cycle. This is just going to be an example with 20K spend on that 4 to 5 day promotion cycle. Essentially, on average, or what most people do, right, is they're like, let me run daily budgets or let me run lifetime budgets, whatever they want to do at an ABO or a CBO. Doesn't really matter. Well, it does matter, but again, for this representation, it doesn't matter. They're going to spend 20% this day, 20% this day, 20% this day, 20% this day, 20% this day. So 4K a day, right? Essentially, if they've got 20K spend. This is very, very, very wrong and not going to work. Why is it wrong? Because if someone opts in 5 days out, so they opt in here, the event's free, right? The event's free. We'll just get that out of the way. The event is 100% free. There's no maybe VIP upsells or anything like that. And even if there is, if you're opting in 5 days outside of the event, you're likely to forget that you've even opted in the first place, right? Which means that you have to spend more on Hammer Them to make sure you can get the same show rate, simply because you've got 20% or theoretically, you've got 20% of your registrants opting in here, and you've also got 20% of them opting in here, and the middle 60% opting in throughout the days in between here. So that basically means you're having to spend more on Hammer Them, which equals less on your purchase and registration campaigns, which means less registrants overall, simply because you're just spending like a retard, like a dumbass. So yeah, that's kind of that side of things. What happens if you spend like this? Essentially, you have no intent to show, and then when a lead does sign up, their intent is as high as it's ever going to be to actually show up. And honestly, as you guys know, it's like the intent will slowly decrease. It's similar to buying a car or an expensive item. Like when you first buy it, you'll be in really big, well, obviously a masterclass, maybe not, but like the same concept applies. You're going to be in really, like, you're going to have a huge dopamine spike, right? You're going to really be loving it. You're going to be loving the car. You're going to be driving it. You're going to be test driving it. You're going to be doing all these different things, right? But as time goes on, that becomes the normal. It becomes more mundane, and you even kind of forget about the thrill it gives you, or the thrill of wanting to drive it, and you don't want to drive it anymore. It's just like showing up to a masterclass, right? You opt into it, you're really ready to go, you're excited, you're wanting to join up, you're wanting to do this, you're interacting with the WhatsApp group chat, the Telegram group chat, you're going through the resources, but overall that hype kind of dies off over the next few days. And yes, you see him pop up on your Instagram reels every now and then talking about whatever topic's going to be discussed on the masterclass within the Hammer Them campaign they're running. But again, the intent's just not going to be the same, right? So this is completely wrong. Like, this is really, really bad if you want to optimize for lead intent as well as show rates. Now, what is the right way to do things? This is the right way to do things. As you can see, same graph, obviously 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is how we spend our budget. So for example, 20K budget, I'm not going to do the math off the top of my head, but we spend 5% on day 1, 5% on day 2, 10% on day 3, 40% on day 5, 40% on day 4 as well, sorry. So essentially, we spend 80% of our budget in the last 2 days of the promo. What does that mean? It means that essentially we can kill underperforming creatives quickly because we can see them quickly. When you're spending 20K over 5 days, you're spending a lot of money through the ad account. And considering some of our we kill campaigns sometimes if the registration cost is like $20 or something like that. It can spend that very, very quickly depending on what setup you've got. So you can really burn a lot of money. So essentially what this allows us to do is kill our underperforming creators on day 1 and 2. On top of that, it stops us from wasting budget on day, 1 and 2 or 3 and 4 and 5 because, we just didn't identify the underperforming creatives. But on top of that, we can also see what creators are winning and potentially rip some new image ads or some ARUGC videos for, promotion on day 3, 4, 5 based off the winners on day 1 and 2, essentially allowing us to have a really good hit rate for that promotion cycle and actually make creators based on real life feedback of that webinar's campaign. Which is a really, really good thing you can do because essentially you can have like an 80% hit rate on the creatives you make for day 4 and 5 simply because you got all this data from the first 3 days, right? And nowadays ARUGC creators with a dialed in like plan and the way we do things, it doesn't actually take that much time building the creatives itself. It's more so getting the messaging down and everything like that, right? So again, you kill underperforming creators quickly. You can actually churn out winning creators quickly as well. And you're going to have higher intent leads simply because of the concept I spoke about here. When leads opt in, they're going to be as high intent as they are. They're ready to go. So if we're having 80% of the, in theory, 80% of the leads opted in on day 4 and 5, that kind of fuse is going to be still very alight for them to actually hop on, right? Simply because there is less time between registration/VIP purchase and actual attendance of the masterclass, right? So obviously, back to point 1 as well, if you're running this like spend structure right here and you're dialing on these 2 days, 80% of the leads are going to be dialed on the day that they opt in or, the day after they opt in. Whereas here, you're still going to be dialing during these times, but people are going to be opting in at theoretically, like obviously theory, the same rate as the first 3 days. So some of the leads that you're dialing on day 4 and 5, they may have been in the funnel for 3 or 4 days already, which is going to lower pickup rates and also lower intent on those setting calls. So you're going to get a lot more people hanging up on you. You're going to get a lot more, like a lot less conversations had and a lot less confirmations and, follow-ups scheduled simply because your ad spend is different or allocated differently. We're still spending the same 20K with this example and with this example, but this example gives us higher show rates, better intent leads, and essentially a better experience for the entire team because 1, we aren't having to work as hard on our email and hammer them sequences simply because everyone is basically just opted in the last couple of days. So we don't have to worry about that and we can put our focus to things that are going to be more revenue generating, like making good copy, like making a good presentation, like making sure our setters are absolutely dialed when it comes to hitting these KPIs, getting people confirmed and actually getting people to, book and maybe post masterclass and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's essentially the second kind of thing, ad spend distribution. Arguably, these 2 things that I discussed are the most important things when it comes to outside of our normal best practices that we run with the agency. These 2 things have really, really helped our show rates and also intent on show rates. Because one thing I will say, it's a little bit of a yap, but intent and show rate are different metrics that you need to track or you need to have an idea on where they're sitting because I've seen webinars show at 40, 50, 60% and have really, really, really bad back-end metrics but because the intent was so low. But I've also had webinars show at maybe 25% on a really cold audience and their metrics on the back end were really, really good in terms of like sales analytics simply because the lead intent going onto these calls and actually going onto the masterclass in the first place was really good. Even though we may have not had as many people on the masterclass, the people who were on were better intent-wise. Not necessarily quality-wise, but just intent-wise, which is another thing I want to talk to you guys about and explain to you guys about kind of thing. But yeah, essentially the third thing is going to be obviously reminder email and SMS. That actually invites a reply. So an example would be like an SMS or like a quick email from the creator's assistant or something like that. Would be, hey, question before you jump on the training, full stop. What part of it are you looking forward to learn and walk away with? Something like that, which insinuates a response. Now, why do we do this? Essentially, responsiveness helps email and SMS health. So essentially, we've got higher deliverability and more trust with the actual provider itself, simply because we're more of a real human being. We're not just sending 20,000 emails a day and no one's responding to it and, no one's clicking on it or interacting with it, right? Which is going to hurt our email health and maybe potentially move us to the promotion tab or even the spam tab, right? This helps us because we're getting people to interact with our emails. It's more so like we're actually emailing each other back and forth, because that is the purpose of email, to communicate, right? The second thing is that responding them sends them a reminder internally, or subconsciously, I should say, to actually show up, because they're obviously put the time commitment towards watching, the ad, going in, opting in, joining the WhatsApp group chat, opening emails as well. But them responding is actually them taking an action physically to do something to ensure that their experience is potentially better, right, on the masterclass. So again, that is sending them a subconscious kind of message, or a conscious message, essentially pushing them to show up to the masterclass simply because they've already kind of allocated time towards it, I guess you can say. But yeah, if you guys want to start seeing show rates like this, you can book a call below. You can DM me on Instagram, whatever. I'm happy to give you guys and provide you guys with whatever you need. But yeah, keep crushing it, keep scaling webinars, and I will be with a new video this time next week on probably more webinars, because we are running 9 webinars this week. So we've got a lot to talk about and a lot of things to go over and chat about. But until then, keep crushing it, keep scaling, and I will chat to you guys soon. Peace.